Amy, thanks so much for joining us. Your colleagues are still there live on top of the Prime Minister's home. Talk me through why they're there.
Yeah, so we're there today to bring home to the Prime Minister the devastating consequences of his decision to unleash this drilling frenzy in the North Sea, just at a time when we're seeing real impacts of climate change playing out across the world. You know, wildfires in Greece, people having to evacuate from their holidays, droughts across the world, flooding, which is killing people. There's absolutely no excuse for the Prime Minister to be doubling down on oil and gas just at the time when we need to be really quickly transitioning away from it.
Perhaps we'll dive in a moment about whether it's a drilling frenzy and whether he's doubling down or just increasing things a little bit. But you said there's no excuse for that decision. Is there any excuse for breaking into the grounds of his home?
To be clear, we didn't break anything.
But you've trespassed on literally the grounds of his home and on his home. We're looking at the pictures now. This is a private residence meant to be a safe place for him, for our Prime Minister, no less. Justify why it's okay to do that.
Because this one is on him. Rishi Sunak is our Prime Minister. It's his decisions that are leading this country, and he's absolutely putting us all at risk by deciding to go after more fossil fuels when the world needs to urgently be transitioning away from them. The science has been very clear for years now that no government anywhere in the world can drill for new fossil fuels.
It is his decision. It might well be the wrong decision, though that's open to debate. But this is his private home. Does he not have a right to privacy? Does he not have a right to safety at home?
This today is about the message that we're bringing home, which is that we are all suffering the consequences.
I get the message, but justify why it's okay to invade on his privacy and invade on his safety. You could have done this protest in Parliament Square. You could have done it wherever else you might see him in public when he is serving his role in his job. This is his home.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm sure you're familiar with the history of Greenpeace. We've done many protests over many years at governments around the world and at politicians around the world, at oil and gas companies around the world. And sometimes you have to take that to the Prime Minister, to the person who is responsible and accountable for making those decisions. And that's what we've done today.
And do you think this will win the public over? I mean, clearly, there are those peaceful protests that you mentioned. There are many people that will agree with your cause, particularly in light of the latest decision this week. When you break laws, you risk alienating those supporters. You risk pushing them away.
I think as Greenpeace, we've always been prepared to break laws in a very peaceful way. We've done nothing to put anyone at risk here. We know that the Prime Minister and his family are on holiday. There was no one on the grounds of the property. We always do a lot of planning and take as many precautions as possible to make sure everyone is safe and everything is peaceful.
I mean, how did you know for sure there was no one there? How did you know he was on holiday? There could have been someone inside.
We did our research.
By spying on the Prime Minister's residence?
That's not what we're here to do. We're here to protect the planet, and we will continue to campaign to protect the planet. The story here is that the Prime Minister is going after more oil and gas in the North Sea. 80% of that will be exported overseas. It will be sold on the international market at the highest price that the people who own the oil and gas can get for it. So it's going to do absolutely nothing to help our energy security here in the UK, and absolutely nothing to help anyone with their sky-high bills here in the UK. So we need to see a rapid investment in renewable energy, which is significantly cheaper than oil and gas, and will also stop us trashing the planet.
With the greatest respect, that's not the story here. That could have been the story, and it could have been comfortably the lead part of your story. But the lead story here is that you have broken the law. You've entered the grounds and climbed on the house of a private citizen. And in doing that, that is the story. And I think from a comms perspective, you've perhaps at the very least, from on a comms perspective, risked your cause and probably alienated some supporters by doing this.
Okay, so here I am talking to you about the story. The story is that our Prime Minister is going after more oil and gas drilling in the North Sea, 100 new licenses potentially in the North Sea. Potentially going to approve Rosebank anytime now, which will be the largest undeveloped oil field in the North Sea. We absolutely cannot have any more oil or gas. The world is suffering the consequences of climate change right now. We can see it. Also, it's the most expensive fuel we could use. And we're in a cost of living crisis.
It's not the most expensive fuel that you could use. If you measure energy generation by gigawatt hour, it's definitely not. Gas, in fact, is one of the cheaper ones over the long term. But again, that's not...
So at one point last year, renewable energy was 9 times cheaper than oil and gas. Currently, it sits at around 3 times cheaper. Fossil fuels are an inherently volatile market. Prices go up and down all the time, as we've seen over the past couple of years.
At one point last year, you're highlighting your point in the volatility. Of course, gas prices have been elevated of late. And of course, wind is a fantastic generation of fuel when it blows and when the demand matches up with when it blows. And again, you have to look at the statistics for the United Kingdom over a long-term trend of 2 decades at how successful the UK, relative to all other developed nations in the G7, has been at shifting its energy mix away from fossil fuels, in particular within that bracket, away from coal, which is very dirty, towards natural gas, which is less dirty, and from fossil fuels in general to cleaner fuels, particularly solar and wind. But we're not ready to switch 100% to those things tomorrow. And the increase in North Sea drilling is relatively small, when we would have to be importing it anyway. So someone would be having to produce that oil or gas. Again, we haven't spent most of this interview talking about it. We have discussed it, but I go back to the point that you have broken the privacy of the Prime Minister, and I just wonder whether you will alienate some people in the tactics that you're using.
Well, I mean, that's probably not the question to ask me. I would say that we wouldn't alienate people in the tactics that we're using. This action is directed at the Prime Minister, who is responsible for making these decisions. Like I said, we shouldn't be investing in fossil fuels. We should be investing in renewable energy, which is best for tackling our energy security and best for tackling the cost of living crisis.
My final question, because we're out of time, and I thank you for joining us today. I imagine he won't change his decision based on this. What's the next stump? Would you break in?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna reveal Greenpeace's plans.
OK, Amy, thanks for joining us. I'm sure the police will be on high alert for next time, either way. Of course, a separate part of what is a crazy story that Greenpeace did find it relatively easy, it seems. Those live pictures you're still looking at of Greenpeace campaigners on top of the Prime Minister's North Yorkshire home. That was the political campaigner for Greenpeace.